The diamond necklace around her throat cost $4,000. I know because I found the receipt in my husband's pocket this morning. What I didn't know was that he'd be fastening it around my best friend's neck while his tongue was down her throat. I'm standing in the doorway of the private dining room at Costello's restaurant, watching my husband Dante kiss Bianca. His hand cups her face with a tenderness I haven't felt in over a year. Her fingers tangle in his hair like she's done this 100 times before, like she owns him. It's our 3rd wedding anniversary. I should scream, throw my purse at them, cause a scene that this fancy restaurant will never forget. Instead, I take out my phone and press record. My hands don't shake. My breathing stays even. 30 seconds of perfect video, his hand sliding down her back, her laughing against his lips, that necklace glittering under the soft restaurant lights. Evidence. I close the door without a sound and walk away. This morning started differently. I woke up excited, which shows how stupid I've been. Today would be special, I told myself. Today, Dante would remember the woman he married. I spent 2 hours getting ready. The red dress from our honeymoon trip, his favorite perfume, hair curled exactly how he likes it. I even practiced my smile in the mirror, trying to look like the happy wife I was supposed to be. That's when I found the receipt while sorting his laundry. Valentino, women's diamond necklace, $4,000, purchased 3 days ago. My heart jumped. An anniversary surprise. Finally proved he still cared. Dante came downstairs at 8, eyes glued to his phone. He kissed my cheek without looking at my dress. Meetings all day. Made us reservations at Costello's for 7. Don't be late. Then he was gone. I waited all day for him to give me the necklace, checked every drawer, every closet, thinking maybe he'd hidden it somewhere for me to find. Nothing. At noon, Bianca called. We'd planned lunch together. She was supposed to help me pick up Dante's anniversary gift, but her voice sounded strange, too high and cheerful. "Can't make it, Val. Job interview came up. You understand, right?" Bianca hasn't had a real job interview in 2 years. Somehow, she lives in a luxury apartment and wears designer clothes while looking for work. I never questioned it before. I never questioned anything before. "No problem," I told her. "Good luck." I spent the afternoon wrapping Dante's gift, an expensive watch he'd mentioned wanting. I'd been saving my tiny allowance for 6 months to afford it. Dante controls all our money, says it's easier that way, says I don't need to worry about finances. Says a lot of things I used to believe. At 6:30, I drove to Costello's early, wanting everything perfect. At 6:45, my phone buzzed. Dante's text, "Running late. Order without me." I didn't go inside. I sat in the parking lot instead, engine off, watching the entrance. Something felt wrong. The same feeling I'd been ignoring for months, like missing the punchline of a joke everyone else understood. 7:15, a black car pulled up. Bianca stepped out, wearing a skin-tight black dress and heels that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. And around her neck, catching the parking lot lights like tiny stars, was a diamond necklace. My diamond necklace, the one meant for me. Everything fell into place. Every late night, every excuse, every time Bianca asked about Dante's schedule, about our marriage, about whether he was being good to me. She wasn't being a concerned friend. She was checking if the coast was clear. The lipstick on his collar, the perfume that wasn't mine, the way he stopped touching me 6 months ago, the secretive phone calls, Bianca's sudden money, her canceled plans, the look they shared at Christmas dinner that I told myself meant nothing. I sat in that car shaking with rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. Then I fixed my lipstick, got out, and walked inside. The hostess smiled. "Mrs. Greco, your husband is in the private room with a guest. He asked not to be—" "Thank you," I said sweetly, and headed straight for the back. 3 private rooms, one door slightly open. I found them there, together, on our anniversary.
I took out my phone and smiled while I recorded everything.
I didn't drive home. I couldn't look at the bed we shared, the kitchen where I cooked his meals, the walls that held 3 years of lies. Instead, I drove 40 minutes to Uncle Lorenzo's house. Lorenzo Moretti is my mother's brother, the only family member who warned me against marrying Dante. Everyone else saw the money, the charm, the fancy wedding. Lorenzo saw something else, something dark. "You don't know what kind of man he really is," he told me 3 years ago. "You don't know what his family does." I didn't listen. I was 25, lonely after my father's death, desperate for someone to love me. Dante swept in like a prince from a fairy tale, handsome, attentive, making me feel like the most important woman in the world. Now I know that fairy tales have monsters too. I arrived at Lorenzo's house at 9. My hands were finally shaking as I knocked on his door. The video sat on my phone like a bomb waiting to explode. Lorenzo opened the door in his reading glasses, a book in his hand. One look at my face, and he pulled me inside without a word. He sat me down in his study, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, and waited. "Take your time," he said quietly. I showed him the video first, watched his jaw tighten as Dante kissed Bianca on screen. Then I started talking, and once I started, I couldn't stop. I told him about the cheating. That was the easy part. Then I told him the rest, the things I'd pretended not to see for 3 years. The men who visited our house at midnight with briefcases full of cash, the guns I found hidden in our closet, in the garage, taped under the bathroom sink, the way servants looked at Dante with fear in their eyes, the screams I heard once from his office, quickly silenced. The blood on his shirt, he said, was from a nosebleed. "I'm not stupid," I told Lorenzo. "I know Dante isn't really a construction consultant. I've known for at least a year. I just didn't want to admit it." Lorenzo listened without interrupting. When he finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to a safe hidden behind a painting of my grandmother. "Are you sure you want to know the truth? Because once you know, you can't unknow it. And the truth is ugly, Valentina." "I want to know everything." He opened the safe and pulled out a thick folder with Dante's name written on it. My uncle used to be a federal prosecutor before retiring to private practice. He investigated criminals for 30 years, and apparently he'd been investigating my husband since before I walked down the aisle. "I tried to find enough to convince you not to marry him, but you were in love. You wouldn't have listened." He was right. I wouldn't have. I looked at the papers with growing horror. Money laundering through fake construction companies, extortion of small business owners, drug shipments through the harbor, and connections to 3 unsolved murders, people who'd crossed the Greco family and simply disappeared. Dante's father, Gavino, runs everything. Dante is being groomed to take over. They're one of the 5 most powerful crime families in the state. I felt sick. The man I'd shared a bed with, kissed, tried to build a life with, he was a monster, and I'd been too blind to see it. "I want out," I whispered. "But if I just leave, they'll kill me. I know too much, even if I've been pretending not to know anything." Lorenzo studied me carefully. "What exactly do you want, Valentina?" I thought about Dante's hands on Bianca, his lies, the way he'd chosen me specifically because I was weak and alone, the way his family looked at me like I was nothing. I want to destroy them. I want to destroy all of them, but I need to do it without getting killed. Lorenzo's eyes widened slightly. Then something like pride crossed his face. "What have you besides this video?" "Access. Dante thinks I'm too stupid to understand what I see in his office. He leaves documents out. He talks on the phone in front of me. He doesn't lock his safe properly." Lorenzo picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Clarissa, it's Lorenzo. That source inside the Greco family you've been dreaming about? I drove home
She's
at
sitting
midnight,
in my living room
rehearsing
right
my
now."
lies the entire way. Every red light gave me time to practice my expressions in the rearview mirror. Hurt wife, confused wife, clueless wife. The role I'd been playing for 3 years without even knowing it. Dante was already in bed when I arrived, freshly showered, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened, like he hadn't spent our anniversary with his tongue in my best friend's mouth. "Where were you?" he asked without looking up. Annoyance, not concern. I let my voice tremble slightly. "I waited at the restaurant for 2 hours. You never showed up." He froze for just a second. Good. Let him panic. "I sat at the bar," I continued, climbing into bed beside him. "The hostess said you'd called to cancel our reservation. I didn't get any message." His shoulders relaxed. The bar, not the private room. He thought he was safe. "Something came up at work," he mumbled. "I texted you." "I never got it. I drove around crying for an hour because I thought you forgot our anniversary." He barely apologized, just said he'd make it up to me and rolled over to sleep. I lay there in the darkness, inches away from a murderer, and felt nothing but cold determination. The man beside me wasn't my husband anymore, he was my target. The next morning, Dante left early for another meeting. I drove across town to meet Clarissa Wong at a coffee shop called Morning Grounds. Lorenzo had described her as the best investigative journalist in the state, someone who'd been trying to expose the Greco family for 2 years. She was already waiting when I arrived, sharp eyes behind stylish glasses, a laptop open in front of her, watching me approach with obvious suspicion. "Mrs. Greco," she said without smiling, "forgive me if I'm careful. The last source who promised me information about your husband's family disappeared 3 weeks later." I sat down across from her. "Ask me anything. Test me however you need to." For the next hour, she did exactly that. Questions about the family structure, business operations, names of associates. I answered everything I could. Nico's full name and role as Dante's enforcer, the address of the warehouse on Pier 17, the schedule of family dinners at Cavino's estate, the shell company names I'd seen on documents. Clarissa's suspicion slowly transformed into excitement. "You actually live inside this," she said quietly. "You see everything." They think I'm decoration, a pretty trophy wife too dumb to understand what's happening around her. I leaned forward. They're wrong. Clarissa asked what I wanted in return for information. I told her about Bianca and Dante, about the anniversary dinner, about the necklace that should have been mine. She listened carefully, and I saw understanding in her eyes. "So this is revenge," she said. "This is survival. If I try to divorce him, I'm dead. If I try to run, I'm dead. The only way out is to burn down everything he has." We made a plan. I would continue playing the perfect wife while gathering evidence. Clarissa would protect my identity and prepare her story. When we had enough, she would publish everything while Lorenzo's FBI contact moved in for arrests. That afternoon, I had lunch with Bianca. She hugged me like nothing was wrong, kissed my cheek, told me I looked tired, asked if everything was okay with Dante. The concern in her voice almost made me laugh. "He forgot our anniversary," I said, adding tears to my voice. "He didn't come to dinner. I don't know what's happening to us." Bianca squeezed my hand sympathetically. "Men can be so thoughtless. I'm sure he still loves you. Maybe he's just stressed with work." I wanted to throw my coffee in her face. Instead, I nodded sadly and asked about her job search. Over the next 2 weeks, I transformed into an actress. I smiled at Dante over breakfast. I attended family dinners and memorized every conversation. I learned that Dante left his phone on the bathroom counter every Wednesday morning during his shower. Exactly 18 minutes of privacy. The first Wednesday, I scrolled through his messages with shaking fingers. 14 months. He'd been seeing Bianca for 14 months. But one message made my blood turn to ice. "Can't wait to be free of her. Just need the right time. My father would kill me if I divorced now. Be patient, my love." Free of me. I photographed everything on Dante's phone. Every message with Bianca, every whispered promise, every plan they'd made together. But I also found something else. Business conversations filled with strange codes and numbers, references to shipments, payments, and problems that needed handling. I sent everything to Clarissa before Dante finished his shower, then deleted every trace of my snooping. When he walked out with a towel around his waist, I was sitting on the bed scrolling through social media like nothing had happened. "You look nice today," he said absently, pulling on his shirt. "Thank you," I smiled sweetly. "What time will you be home?" "Late. Family dinner at my father's estate. We're both expected." My stomach tightened. Family dinners at Gavino's house were my least favorite events. The women were cold, the men were terrifying, and everyone watched everyone else like wolves circling prey. But tonight, I would watch back. We arrived at the Greco estate at 7. The house was massive, white columns, marble floors, servants in pressed uniforms. Gavino had built his empire over 40 years, and every inch of this mansion showed his power. Dante's mother had died years ago, so Gavino ruled alone. He sat at the head of the long dining table like a king surveying his kingdom. His eyes were cold and calculating, missing nothing. "Valentina," he said as I took my seat. "You look thin. Are you eating properly?" "Yes, father." I used the title he insisted upon. "Just busy with house projects." He studied me for a moment, then turned his attention elsewhere. I didn't exist to him beyond what I could provide. A suitable wife for his son, future grandchildren, nothing more. During dinner, the men discussed business in coded language. A problem was being handled, a shipment was arriving next week. Someone had disappointed them and needed correction. I memorized every word while pretending to focus on my food. After dinner, the men retreated to Gavino's office for cigars and private conversation. The women were left in the sitting room with expensive wine and uncomfortable silence. Dante's aunts and cousins had never accepted me. I was an outsider, a nobody from a regular family with no connections or money. They tolerated me because Dante had chosen me, but their smiles never reached their eyes. Tonight, I actually listened to their careful words. Complaints about servants, gossip about other families, subtle comments about husbands and the things wives must ignore to survive. These women knew everything. They knew what their husbands did, what blood paid for their jewelry and designer clothes. They chose blindness because the alternative was too frightening. Francesca, one of the older wives, caught me watching her. After 20 minutes, she excused herself to the bathroom and shot me a meaningful look. I followed. She was waiting in the hallway, checking that no one could hear us. "You're different tonight," she said quietly, "paying attention in a way you haven't before." My heart pounded. "I don't know what you mean." "I've been married to this family for 32 years. Francesca's eyes were hard. "I know what it looks like when someone wakes up and starts seeing clearly." I said nothing. "Whatever you think you know, forget it. Whatever you think you can do, you can't. Women like us survive by being blind and quiet. The ones who ask questions or cause problems, they disappear. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." She walked past me back toward the sitting room. "Be smart, Valentina. Stay alive." When we returned home that night, Dante was agitated. He went straight to his office, the room I was forbidden from entering, and slammed the door. I waited an hour, pretending to read in bed. Then I crept downstairs and pressed my ear against his office door. His voice was angry. "I don't care what you have to do, Nico. The shipment can't be late again. My father is already questioning my capability. Do you understand what happens if I look weak?" I recorded through the door, heart hammering in my chest. After Dante finally came to bed at 2 in the morning, I waited until his breathing became deep and steady. Then I slipped downstairs to his office. The door was locked, but I'd found a spare key in his gym bag weeks ago. My hands trembled as I entered the room. The smell was leather and cigars. Behind a painting of hunting dogs, exactly where I expected, was a wall safe. I tried 5 combinations, but one worked. I found exactly what I expected. Open. Stacks of cash, a handgun, and a leather ledger filled with handwritten entries, numbers, dates, names. everything Clarissa needed to build her story. But then I found something I didn't expect, a folder with my name on it. Valentina Greco, written in Gavino's handwriting. My fingers went cold as I opened it. Inside was a background check dated 4 years ago, a full year before I even met Dante. My family history, my education, my finances, my father's death, my mother's breakdown afterward. Every weakness I'd ever had, documented and analyzed. There were notes in the margins, Gavino's handwriting again. No family connections, no powerful relatives, educated enough to be presentable but not ambitious. Father recently deceased, mother institutionalized, emotionally vulnerable, desperate for stability and love. Will be easy to control and grateful for attention. I read those words 3 times before they sunk in. My entire marriage was a selection process. Dante didn't fall in love with me at that charity event. He was sent to collect me. Gavino had chosen me specifically because I was weak and alone, because I had nobody to protect me or ask questions. I was never a wife. I was a purchase. There was more in the folder, a prenuptial agreement with my signature at the bottom. I didn't remember signing it, but there it was, in my handwriting, giving up all rights to Greco assets in case of divorce, agreeing to confidentiality about family business, promising to never testify against any family member in court. They had thought of everything, planned for every possibility, made sure I could never escape or hurt them. I photographed every page with shaking hands. The ledger took longer, dozens of entries documenting payments, shipments, and names I recognized from news stories about missing people, evidence of crimes spanning 5 years. Then I closed the safe, locked the office, and returned to bed. Dante slept peacefully beside me, the monster who had chosen me like selecting a puppy from a shelter, someone grateful enough to ignore the darkness, someone disposable. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I met Clarissa to hand over the photographs. We chose a different coffee shop this time, 20 miles from my neighborhood. I was stirring my untouched latte when I noticed him. Nico, Dante's enforcer, sitting 3 tables away, watching me. My heart stopped. I gripped my phone under the table, ready to text Lorenzo a warning. This was it. They'd found out. I was dead. But then Nico stood up and walked directly to my table before Clarissa arrived, his face unreadable. "Mrs. Greco," he said quietly, "you've been very busy lately. Different coffee shops, always meeting the same woman, taking photographs of things that don't belong to you." I couldn't breathe. "I've worked for your husband for 8 years," Nico continued. "I've done things that keep me awake at night, but I've also watched Dante become more reckless, more cruel, more like his father." He paused. "And I've watched how he treats you, like furniture, like you're nothing." I found my voice. "Why are you telling me this?" Nico slid a piece of paper across the table, numbers written in pencil. "There's a second safe, warehouse on Pier 17. This is the combination." He looked directly into my eyes. "Security cameras have a blind spot on the northeast corner. Guard change happens at 3 in the morning. You'll have 10 minutes. I stared at the paper. "Why are you helping me?" His jaw tightened. 2 months ago, Dante ordered me to hurt someone who owed money, a kid, 17 years old. Nico's voice dropped. When I hesitated, Dante did it himself, and he enjoyed it, smiled the whole time. I felt sick. "I have a son that age," Nico said. "I'm done." He left before Clarissa arrived. I sat frozen, clutching the paper with the safe combination. When Clarissa finally showed up, I told her everything. "It could be a trap," she warned. "Or it could be real." That night, I told Uncle Lorenzo about Nico's offer. We debated for hours. The risk was enormous, but the reward, evidence that could bring down the entire organization. At 2:45 in the morning, I sat in Lorenzo's car outside Pier 17. Clarissa was in the back seat. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and terrifying. "Last chance to back out," Lorenzo said. I pulled a black cap low over my face. "Let's go." At exactly 3:02, I slipped through the fence at the northeast corner. Just like Nico promised, no cameras pointed this direction, no guards in sight. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made me want to run. The warehouse was massive, shipping containers stacked everywhere, rusted metal and concrete stretching into darkness. The smell of salt water and engine oil filled my nose. I found the office on the second floor, overlooking the main warehouse floor. The door was unlocked. Inside, behind a filing cabinet, was the safe Nico had described. I entered the combination with trembling fingers. One wrong number and alarms might sound. Guards might come. I might never leave this place alive. The safe clicked open. Inside were hard drives, USB sticks labeled with dates, and files thick with documents. I grabbed everything, stuffing items into my backpack as fast as I could. This was it. Everything we needed to destroy the Greco family forever. Then, I heard voices below. I killed the office light and pressed myself against the wall. Through the dirty window, I could see the main floor. Men were entering through a side door, flashlights cutting through the darkness. And leading them was Dante. My husband was here at 3 in the morning meeting someone in secret. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nico never mentioned Dante using this warehouse at night. I crouched low and watched. 4 men stood around an open shipping container. Inside were packages wrapped in plastic, dozens of them stacked like bricks. Even from here, I knew what they were. Drugs, millions of dollars worth. A 5th man arrived, someone I didn't recognize. He handed Dante a briefcase. Dante opened it, counted the contents, and nodded with satisfaction. I took out my phone and pressed record. The audio was faint, but I caught fragments of conversation. Distribution next week, double the usual price. Cops getting closer, need to move fast. Dante looked different down there. Dangerous, powerful. Nothing like the charming man who brought me flowers on our first date. This was the real Dante, the monster underneath the mask. Then, disaster struck. My phone buzzed in my hand, a text notification loud in the silent warehouse. Dante's message from hours ago finally delivering because of the bad signal. Everyone below froze. Dante looked up toward the office, eyes narrowing. I dropped to the floor, pressing my face against cold concrete, holding my breath. Footsteps echoed on the metal stairs. Someone was coming up. The office had only one exit, one door, and someone was about to open it. I looked around desperately. The window, it was my only chance. I texted Lorenzo one word: run. Then, I opened the window as quietly as possible and threw my backpack out first. It hit the ground 2 stories below with a soft thud. The door handle turned behind me. I climbed onto the window ledge, fingers gripping the frame, legs dangling over concrete. The door opened just as I lowered myself out of sight. "Must have been a rat," someone said. "Office is empty." I hung there, arms screaming with effort, praying they would leave. Then, I heard Dante's voice directly above me. "The window is open. It wasn't open before." My fingers were slipping. I couldn't hold on any longer. I let go. The fall lasted forever and no time at all. I tucked my body the way my father taught me years ago when he coached my gymnastics team. Hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through my ankle. But I grabbed the backpack and ran. Behind me, shouting erupted. They'd seen me. I limped toward the fence, adrenaline overriding the agony in my leg. Footsteps pounded behind me, getting closer. I wasn't going to make it. Then, headlights blinded me. A car crashed through the gate. Lorenzo, ignoring our careful plan, coming to save me. Clarissa threw open the back door. I dove inside as bullets hit the car, shattering the rear window. Lorenzo floored the accelerator and we disappeared into the night. We didn't stop driving until we were 3 towns away. I was shaking, crying, my ankle swelling to twice its normal size, but I was clutching the backpack. Everything we needed was inside. "They saw you," Clarissa said grimly. "Maybe not your face, but they know someone broke in." My phone buzzed.
7 missed calls from Dante, and 1 text, "Where are you? We need to talk."
I stared at
now."
Dante's message for a long moment. Lorenzo and Clarissa both argued against going home. They said it was suicide. They said Dante would kill me the moment he suspected anything. But I knew something they didn't. Running would confirm his suspicions. Hiding would make me look guilty. The only way forward was straight through the fire. I texted back, couldn't sleep, went for a drive, coming home now. Lorenzo dropped me 3 blocks from the house. My ankles screamed with every step, but I forced myself to walk normally. When I opened the front door, Dante was waiting in the living room, still dressed from the warehouse, eyes cold and calculating. "Where were you?" he demanded. I let tears fill my eyes. "I couldn't sleep. Our marriage feels so distant lately. I drove around for hours thinking about everything." My voice cracked perfectly. "I don't know what's happening to us, Dante. You're never home. You barely look at me. I feel like I'm losing you." He studied my face, searching for lies. But I'd been practicing this role for weeks. The confused wife, the lonely woman desperate for her husband's attention. His suspicion wavered. He couldn't imagine me as a threat. I was too weak, too stupid, too controlled to ever betray him. "We'll talk later," he muttered, grabbing his keys. "Something happened at work. I have to go." The moment his car disappeared, I packed a small bag and hid it in the garage. Then I called Uncle Lorenzo. "The FBI needs 48 hours to coordinate," he said. "Clarissa's story is written, but her editor wants confirmation that arrests are happening. You need to stay in character for 2 more days." 2 more days, pretending to love a monster. That evening, Bianca called. Her voice was nervous, distracted. She invited me to lunch the next day, playing the concerned friend one last time. At lunch, Bianca couldn't stop checking her phone. Dante had obviously told her about the warehouse break-in. She kept asking strange questions. Had I noticed anything unusual? Had Dante seemed stressed? Did I know anything about his business problems? I smiled and shook my head and let her think I was clueless. That night, Dante announced we were attending dinner at his father's estate, the whole family, a show of unity during their crisis. I knew what this really was. Gavino testing everyone, watching for the traitor in their midst. The dinner was suffocating. Gavino gave a speech about loyalty and family and what happened to people who betrayed them. His eyes swept across every face at the table, lingering on the wives. "We found security footage from the warehouse," he announced. "A figure in dark clothes, small build." He paused. "Possibly a woman." My blood turned to ice, but I kept eating, kept smiling, kept playing my role. After dinner, Gavino called Dante into his office. When Dante returned, his face was pale with barely controlled rage. In the car, he finally spoke. "My father thinks I'm weak. He thinks I can't control my own household." His hands gripped the steering wheel. "He's questioning whether I deserve to lead this family." For the first time, I saw Dante clearly. Not powerful, not dangerous, just a scared little boy trying to impress a father who would never be satisfied. I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered Bianca, the folder with my name, the 17-year-old boy Dante had beaten while smiling. The next morning, Dante left early. I grabbed my hidden bag and drove straight to Lorenzo's house. At noon, Clarissa's article went live. Inside the Greco crime family, a 3-year investigation. At 12:30, FBI raids hit 7 locations simultaneously. Gavino's estate, Dante's office, the warehouse. I watched it unfold on television, safe in Lorenzo's living room. My phone exploded with calls from Dante. Finally, one text came through. "It was you. You destroyed everything. You're dead." I texted back slowly, carefully. Then I attached the video from our anniversary, Dante kissing Bianca, the necklace glittering around her throat. "You destroyed us first. I just made sure everyone knew what you really are." Then I blocked his number forever. 6 months later, I sat in a small cafe in a different state, using a different name. My hair was shorter, darker, law school textbooks spread across my table. On my phone, a news alert appeared. Dante Greco sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. I smiled, closed the notification, and returned to my reading.